Okay, just doing a little bit of testing before the summit starts. This is the virtual fatherhood conference or summit. It says preparing, so I should not be Facebook live yet.
I don't see anything going live yet.
Okay.
For those folks watching the recording later, we're trying to go live on Facebook as well. So that, in fact, it looks like it says it's streaming.
There we go.
Yeah, there we are. Yep, I see it.
Hello, and I wanted to personally invite and thank every single one of you guys for watching this video, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it later on YouTube, whether you're watching it 5 years down the road. So welcome to the 2018 first ever annual Fatherhood Summit. My name is Matt Woodger. I'm CEO and creator of Wrestling with Fatherhood. My big goal in this first ever Fatherhood Summit is to equip dads to discover their strengths, understand their value, develop their goals, and live out their dreams to become their child's biggest heroes. Within the next couple of days, my hope and my prayer is that men who are watching are able to understand their importance within the family, whether that's talking about any of the subjects that we're talking about. We're going to be talking about faith. So what does faith and fatherhood have? Why is faith in something bigger than yourself? Why is that so important? We're going to be talking about marriage. Why is it so important to be on the same page as your spouse? Not only faith and marriage, but we're going to talk about work-life balance. How can we as men get on a better page and balance out our lives? We're going to be talking about personality styles and understanding the importance when it comes to personality styles. How do you get along with your children if you have a completely different personality style? I think that's an important question. I think all parents wonder at one time or another. We're also going to talk about how business and finances relate to this idea of fatherhood. And so come with us. I cannot wait for this journey to get started. And let's go ahead and we'll jump right in.
Hey, Matt, and I'm honored to be on and helping out today and kind of playing the interviewee or interviewer instead of the interviewee for a chance. So thank you for inviting me to do that. And Matt and I have been running in circles for a while and talked to each other a couple of times. I've been on his podcast. He's been on mine. It's great to have a chance to talk to you here at the summit. So back in the day, if you can remember this, when you started this idea of wrestling with fatherhood, you've got a lot of different channels. We just mentioned you've got a podcast, you do speaking, you do coaching, you've got a blog. You started all this stuff to equip dads to help them figure out who they were, what their strengths are, their value in the world, think about their goals and actually live out their dreams. And I know one of your focuses is for dads to be heroes, heroes to their wife, heroes to their kids, heroes to the people around them. So why is it that you're focusing this summit on getting dads equipped in these areas of faith, marriage, work-life balance, personality styles, business, and finances? Why are you focusing on these areas if you're trying to equip dads?
Yeah, so when you take a look in today's society of dads, it's easy to see that the male, the father figure, is easily overlooked. When you turn on media, when you turn on the TV, turn on the radio, you sit down and watch a TV show, dads are typically portrayed as either over-aggressive or they're very passive. They're very, sweetie, you can do whatever you want. I believe that it is time for men to stand up and to understand this awesome responsibility that we have in our children's lives. If we understand these different areas, faith, understanding that there's something bigger than us and that we can get a purpose from understanding that much larger, whether you call that God, whether you call that Jesus, there's something bigger than what we are that gives us that incredible purpose. Understanding marriage, when we understand that awesome partner that we have, we understand that, that this amazing spouse, we can implement, value, we can implement strengths, and we can bring those out of our spouses. Not only that, but the work-life balance. There are so many men who are working 24/7. They're working to provide. They're working to show, and that's how they show love. What I want to say, and what I think is so important, is that our children need us physically in the home and physically in their lives. Not only that, but personality styles. There's so many different personalities in the world. There's so many personalities when we have children, when we have different children. I have 3 daughters, and all 3 of them are completely different. And so that opens up a really great question and subject of, when we have children and they have such different personalities than what we have, how do we get along with those children? How do we go and encourage them to be creative and to think for themselves, teach them how to think? That's really important when it comes to the personality styles. And then business and finances. Scott, you've got a podcast talking about stewardship, and what do we do with the things that we're blessed with? We've got so much, especially here in the United States, that I think it's time for, as men, we understand how we can give back, and specifically to give back to our family, to give back to our wife. We're recording this summit 15 days from Christmas. And I just heard an alarming statistic that there are so many families, there's so many families that take out a personal loan for Christmas. And so as dads, as men,
well, it sneaks up on them and surprises them, because they move it around, right?
Of course. It's almost like they should pick one day a year to do Christmas and stick with the one day.
No, that's too complicated. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
As dads, like, when we understand that we can give back to our spouses, we can give back to our children. When we understand these 5 areas, and we understand these specific areas, we can then implement those into our children.
Absolutely. I agree. By the way, we've been joined over on Facebook by Will and Michael, it looks like. Guys, if y'all have any questions, please just post them there in Facebook, and please share this as well. If others that would benefit from it, tag them in it, ask them to, if they've got a chance, come over and watch, or if not, they can catch the recording later as well. So Matt, thinking about that, let's just assume for a minute that as this summit and others like it, that I know you're planning on some more back in 2019, if we really touch dads, if we get them to focus on these areas and make growth in these areas, master them, get better at the very least, what would that look like? What are some of the effects? How would that play out in the world? How would that play out in the U.S. if dads were really concentrating on these areas and making growth in them?
Wow, it would be global changing. And what I mean by that is, I had the opportunity and the privilege when I lived in Missouri several months ago to do prison ministry. And so in prison ministry, when you look at the people, the men and women that are in prison, we understand that there are 88% of the men and women that are in prison grew up without a father figure, or at least a good male role model.
Yep.
When we look at the statistics with people who are in poverty, most people that come from poverty or that are living on the streets grew up without a great home life, without a great father figure in their life. When we look at teen pregnancy, when we look at drugs, when we look at addictions, when we look at these different social aspects, these different issues, a lot of those come back to having or not having a great father figure in their life. I believe that once we understand our own value, we can implement those values, those strengths, those goals, and those dreams, and the ability to get them into all of our children. So I want you to imagine for a second that we have great fathers in the home. You know, if you're watching this or you're listening to this, I want you to imagine that everyone has a great dad, that we've brought dads back into the home, that they understand their value. Now, this is going to affect the lowest of lows from the poverty level all the way up into our politics. Thank the good Lord that this is not a summit on politics. But I want you to think for a second on how great dads would affect our politics. Now, I'm not talking about people and everyone agreeing 100% with everything that you're saying, but I'm talking about taking those values and those leadership qualities that they're already leading with and that they're pushing now down into the United States so that men everywhere can understand that, can understand their own value, their own strengths, and build each other up, build marriages up. If we understand, you know, the effects are endless and it's countless, because as men, if we understand that, if we start understanding this value and able to communicate with one another, you know, marriages, the broken homes are going to disappear. Mm-hmm. The marriages are going to be 100% and 100%. There's no longer this 50-50 thing. It's simply two spouses that are passionately sold out for each other. Work-life balance. We're going to be able to work and go to our jobs, and we're going to come home. We're going to have time and energy to spend with each of our children. Yeah, you asked about the effects. Our daughters, our young little girls, are going to grow up to understand that they're valued, that they're important. And not only are they valued and important, but they can reach any level of success that they want, that they put in front of themselves. Our little girls are going to grow up, and she might be the first president in the United States. They're going to become CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And don't worry, I haven't forgot about about our little boys, because our little boys are going to grow up and they're going to understand that we were all created for a purpose. And that we were all made special. And so that's going to translate into the way that we treat women. That's going to translate into the way that we treat those people around us. One of the biggest things going around in the United States right now is this issue of racism. And it's a big, massive issue. I would propose that if, as men, we understood our own value and treated it and understood that we're to be respected. Not only are we to be respected, but this person over here was created for a purpose, and so they're supposed to be respected. That we could change the fabric of the United States and the world simply by understanding this concept that men are for a purpose, that we need to bring men back into the home, that we need to bring men back into the family. That we need to understand, and that we need to start pouring some energy into the fathers of families.
You know, Will threw out a question a minute ago, and I wanted to give you a chance to kind of respond to it, because we're talking a lot about fatherhood. You've also gone into talking about men in general, and again, I've had enough conversations with you. I know that you're focusing on fathers, but really and truly, this is about men. And what Will's question was what about stepdads? You know, a lot of times, you mentioned broken homes a minute ago, and you mentioned divorce, and you mentioned all of these things that are, you know, they're just a reality of the world that we live in today. It's happening. And so what about if you're the father that steps in as a stepdad of kiddos who perhaps their father isn't as engaged or isn't as involved in their life? You know, or in my case, I'm the godfather of two beautiful little girls that, you know, they're not my girls, but their dad is out of the picture. And in many ways, I end up playing the father figure for them, you know, as well as being a father to my own kid and still being a husband to my own wife. So how does that play out, you know, in that kind of step situation? What's different or the same about that?
I absolutely love this question. And you know, for those of you who have listened to my podcast for any length of time, you kind of know a little bit about my story. I was adopted. My dad ended up taking off. My stepdad came into the picture, and that's the 100,000 foot view of it. a stepdad or a goddad is what I would say is what I would call a second chance dad. And what that means, and what that means is, like, you have the honor and the privilege of being a dad to that child. You know, my stepdad, one of the things that he would do every Thanksgiving, and something that I always looked forward to, it was something that I loved and I cherished even today, is that every Thanksgiving he would take my sister and I out trapping. And so he would take us with him and share his experiences, share passion. And so what I would say as a stepdad is present that to your stepchildren. Get involved where they're at. Get involved in their passions. Invite them to come with you. You may not consider yourself their dad, but you still play a vital role in that child's life. Because again, going back to the statistics about prisons, 88% of men and women that are in prison grew up without a good father figure or a good male role model. And that's where you would come in. You still have the incredible responsibility of implementing strengths and value, and not only strengths and value, but goals and dreams into those children. Your children, your stepchildren, they're still watching you. They still want to know how you're going to handle things. They're still watching on how you look at yourself. They're still watching the way that you handle conflicts with their mother. And they're still learning. You are just as important. And in some cases, I would even argue as a step parent that you are actually a little bit more important than sometimes even the original father figure. Because while my dad, the man that I call dad, shaped a lot of who I am, it was my stepdad who showed me how to be there and to be present with my wife, with my children, because my stepdad was there. My stepdad was in the home. My stepdad has encouraged me, and he has shown me that I can do stuff, that I don't have to take off like my dad. And so I like to call step parents second chance parents.
I like that. Yeah. And I think, and again, even circling it out wider than that, I think as men, sometimes even if we don't have children of our own, there are ways, through big brothers, big sisters, through other social organizations and civic organizations, through church, through whatever, that we oftentimes can step into those roles of being, yes, we're not someone's father, but we're still a father figure. In whatever name you want to give it. And with the number of broken homes, and sometimes we're the only father figure some people have. And taking that serious, recognizing the great, number one, the great honor that is, number two, the great gift that is, and blessing that it is to get to do that. And then number three, the awesome responsibility that means that you have as that father figure. It's both pleasing and daunting all at the same time. I think of that with again, the two little girls that I'm the goddad of, and get to interact with their life. And as an example, I was at the birthday party for one of them just the other day, and her dad was there. He's kind of gotten a little bit back in their life, and I was very, very careful that since he was interacting with the young lady, that I stepped kind of back, and took a second seat. But I was there because if he hadn't shown up, which was entirely possible, then I would have taken her around and kind of been dead, So it's that weird dichotomy of having to be active and yet passive at the same time that happens sometimes to us in these situations. So,
and I think you brought up a great point. When my mom and my stepdad got married, and I wasn't quite sure what to think at 12 years old. There was a new man in my life. There was a gentleman at church who came up and he loved on my sister and I. And there's a man by the name of Jeff Duncan, somebody who even came up and he said, "Hey, I would love to kind of take you guys under my wing." And so he really did that. And so, if you don't have children, That's where a good male role model comes in.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
every single one of us are being watched in one shape, size, or form. There are other people's children watching me to see how I treat my wife when we're out. There are other people's children watching me to see how I treat my girls. And so, I think that's where the good male role model, because we still have a chance, even though I've got 3 biological children, I wouldn't trade them for the world. I love them with everything I've got. They're awesome girls. I still have the opportunity to take other children under my wing. When we have broken homes, when we have dads that aren't in the picture, we still have that incredible responsibility to go and to be that good male role model. And so I definitely would completely agree with you on that.
So, if we dig into these a little bit, so I know coming up over the next few weeks, you got a lot of great speakers lined up. In fact, Dow joined us over in Facebook, and he's coming up as one of the speakers here later this week. I did post for folks, and those of you that are listening, if you go to www.fatherhood.com/summit, you can sign up there and you'll still get notified who the upcoming speakers are, when they go live, and all of that sort of thing. I presume you'll be sending out links to the recordings through that. So if you want to catch these later, that's a great way of doing it. So even if you're over on Facebook, please go to www.fatherhood.com/summit and sign up there, so you get notified of everything that's going on. And Will, by the way, mentioned that he kind of had done the same thing that I was talking about. He's been at a birthday party for his girlfriend's son. And in his case, the dad didn't show up, so he got to be dad, and it can happen either way. So that's the way that works. So let's dial in a little closer. The rest of today, we're talking about faith. That's what's going on. And there's another speaker coming up right after you. That's going to be
Dow.
Dow, oh, right. Dow's next. Okay. Well, no wonder he joined. He's eavesdropping. Hi, Dow. And then this evening, there's 2 speakers. Is that right?
Yep. Sean Romero will be on. And his story is amazing. It's a story of being in the military, and not only being in the military, but going through a divorce and having all these different obstacles in life, all these different excuses in life. And he's going to talk to us a lot about how faith and how God came into his life,
helped him through it,
really paved the way to get through all those different things.
And then after Sean is coming, or Sheen is coming up.
After that is Patrick Walsh.
Oh yeah, another great, and so so far every one of these guys I know, so I'll attest to the fact too that every one of them is an awesome speaker. Dow, of course, is the barefoot speaker, is kind of his moniker, and he and I joked about why that is, because I do barefoot speaking too, and it turns out it's the same reason. So he'll probably let you in on that too. But Patrick's coming up this evening, right?
Yeah, and there are some phenomenal speakers that are coming up that can share their experience, and whether that's marriage or faith or personality styles, all these different things. Just a phenomenal lineup.
Yeah, let's stay on faith here for a minute. We'll talk a little bit about the other ones in a moment. But on faith and fatherhood, why did you pick faith as something to focus on for fatherhood? Why are we spending 4 hours today talking about faith when it's a fatherhood summit? And what's more, why did you put that first? Because that's the first thing out of the gate. You're talking about faith. Why did it come first, and why faith? What's the relationship?
So I think those are excellent questions. And the reason why faith is first is because I believe a faith in something bigger than yourself will pave the way of understanding what it takes to be a great dad. I believe that having that relationship, and for me, that's a personal relationship with Jesus, and understanding who he is as a dad pours into me, and then I can pour that and implement that into my children. I believe it is my belief that I know faith kind of looks like the oddball out of everything that's being talked about, but I think a faith in something bigger than yourself gives you that purpose and that understanding. See, if we don't have a faith in God or in something bigger than who we are, then, where do our strengths come from? But understanding who Jesus is, understanding who God is, and that's not the same for everyone. I understand that, and I respect that. But understanding that purpose comes from something bigger than who you are paves the way for you to be a better dad. It paves the way for you to understand that you are valued, because that value comes from something bigger than who you are. If we don't have that, understanding, if we don't have that faith, then, there is no difference. My value comes from who, maybe who my parents said that I was, or my value comes from who my birth parents are, or my value comes from who, maybe my dad who said I was. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because once we have faith in something bigger and stronger, and they implement that purpose and show us what that purpose is, then our value is no longer dependent on our financial situation. It's no longer dependent on whether our marriage worked out, whether we already have a broken family. It's no longer reliant on if I came from a horrible, abusive home. That stuff happened, but it's not what gives us our value. Faith in something much bigger than who we are is what gives us that value. And as dads, we can pass that value down into our children.
Mm-hmm. It kind of comes down to, too, that if we don't recognize our own value, it becomes pretty much impossible to instill value in your own kids. I mean, I would argue that you might be able to fake it, but it's not real. It's not gonna really stick, because, and I know that's something I've struggled with, as a dad. And, again, Matt, you and I have been on each other's shows. So, Wrestling with Fatherhood is your podcast, found everywhere great podcasts are. Inspired Stewardship is mine. And actually my interview with you started going live today, ironically. That wasn't planned, but it worked out that way. And when you look at all of these things, and you think about how we both grew up with a less than stellar example of fatherhood, and yet, in different ways, and yet we both kind of work to try to be the best fathers we can be. And I don't claim to be perfect. I know you don't either.
Nope.
I've screwed it up more often than I'd care to admit. But I think our faith comes down to a big part of that. And I know for me, my faith journey, I left the church, I left faith, I ran away from God. I called him all sorts of nasty names and made a few rude hand gestures in his general direction. And yet at some point, it came back to being something that's fundamental of who and what I am and what I do. And some of that comes down to the fact that, my dad was less than a perfect example, but one thing that he did do is he did instill in me this core of faith, because he did have that. He wasn't perfect, but he did have that. So how does that faith, how does faith play out in a different way? So now not just faith in God, but faith in each other, faith in our relationship with, our wife and with our kids. What is, in your case, what does that look like a little bit? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So I think that's a great question. When we see all these families and we see broken homes, and, when you come from a broken home, it's really easy to lose that faith in other people and lose faith in having a successful marriage, having faith in yourself that you can be a successful dad. Notice I didn't say the word perfect. No one's perfect.
Yeah.
One of the best pieces of advice on fatherhood I ever got was from my father-in-law, who said that everyone makes mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And so I think that's insanely important, because if we, whether we lose faith in marriage and ourselves as a father figure, it would be really easy to sit here and use that as an excuse and say, hey, my parents got a divorce, I was abused, and so I can continue, abusing. My father came from addiction. My family came and they're all addicts. However, the great thing about having faith, not only in God, but having faith in people is sitting here and saying, hey, you know what? I can change my family's history. I do not have to be, taking control of the situation. I don't have to be someone who follows in those footsteps. Yeah, it's tough. It's difficult. One of the things I had to learn really quick when right after my wife and I got married is that one of the ways that I calmed down is I kind of turned around and I walked the other way. Well, that really upset my wife,
Mm-hmm.
who still has both of her parents and both of her biological parents. Her parents have been married for 40 years. And so I'm like, well, like, how else am I supposed to act? How am I like,
Right.
how am I supposed to cool down? And she said, let's talk it out. If you need a moment, tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how you don't like, I never lost faith in her. And so not losing faith in her and in our own marriage, and we're about to celebrate 11 years of marriage, which is phenomenal. She's an incredible gift from God. And so, but even though it's about having faith in each other, because it would be really easy for me to turn around and walk away over the dumbest of reasons. But when we have faith in something that's bigger than ourselves, or even faith in this idea that, marriages do work, relationships work. Not only do relationships and marriages work, but we're a team. And I have faith in that team that when, I homeschool my girls, I've got the privilege of doing that, when my wife comes home, even from a hard day at work, I have faith in that team that she's going to come and she's going to help me out. Yeah. And so having faith in these different ideas can help keep that relationship strong. Having faith in your marriage, having faith that your spouse is going to be there and that she's not going to leave you. Even if you've been left before, having faith in the idea of people and good people. Having faith in this work-life balance. Hey, man, like if I'm not working 24/7, we're not going to be able to financially provide. Sometimes you might have to take a small hit in order to go and plug in with your children.
Yep.
And it's not easy. I definitely understand that. But having faith in this idea that things are going to work out.
Yeah.
Having faith in personality styles, that these things are that we're going to connect, and that even though my daughter and I may not get along some days, that she's going to have faith and trust in me enough that there's nothing that she can say or do that's going to push me away. And likewise, having faith in that, having faith in, and again, finances and business. And so having faith in those other things and not just, the man upstairs, I believe can be absolutely life-changing.
So let's talk about those other topics a little bit and just kind of give people a heads up of what's coming the rest of the week. So tomorrow's topic of the day is marriage.
Yep.
Right. First speaker's up actually the hour before this one, right?
Yep.
Okay. So depending on what time zone you're in, you can do the math. It'll
be 12 o'clock Eastern
time, right? So 12 Eastern. And that's going to be who's up first tomorrow?
Alan Thomas.
Okay.
So okay. Alan and his wife have faced some different challenges head on, and like not only have they faced some challenges and walked through and are on the other side of it, but they've also been married for 32 years.
Awesome.
And as you know, in today's society, that's a
long time. Yeah.
And so, I'm going to be talking to him about that, including like a massive weight loss journey. And cool. It's going to be really awesome to hear how they both came together and formed that team that we were just talking about having faith in. I'm really looking forward to that one.
And then at 1 Eastern is going to be
Michael Prince.
Okay.
So he runs an organization called Because Family, and his whole journey, his whole thing is that he wants to keep families safe during this technology age. It's so easy
and that can be tough.
yeah, it is. And so he travels a lot with his family. And so, I'm going to talk to him about, how do you stay close, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally, and take that time for your spouse, take that time for your children.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause technology, it's in our life 24/7. It's on there, it's a lot of times it's our alarm clock. And so it's the last thing we look at night. And it's the first thing we look at in the morning.
Yep.
So luckily my phone doesn't mind if I have morning breath, however, but anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So, and who's up next for marriage?
So the next one is going to be my friend, Tommy Lannon.
Okay.
And he's going to be great. I had him on my podcast, and one of the great things that
and that's at 2 Eastern, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
One of the great things that he does in his relationships is at the beginning of the month, he plans on having a date night with his wife, having that intentional time that he can grow and strengthen his marriage. Yeah. He also has that with each individual one of his children. He takes them out on dates, and his son on dates, his daughter on dates. Not only that, but he has a time scheduled that him and his wife both like together and separate. So like his wife can go and she has a night that she can go and just kind of relax and recoup and just that very intentional relationship.
And he takes care of the kiddos while she has a night out. Yeah. And vice versa. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. That takes some design to get to that.
Yeah. So, that intentionality on relationships, and what exactly does that look like?
So that's 3. So who's the last speaker at 8?
So the last speaker is Ray Matz. And so he is the CEO of a company called Game Changing Dads. And he's going to come out and he's going to talk a little bit about, he got married a little bit older in life. And so we're going to talk about how that prepared him to be a great husband and a great dad. And, he's all about, he's very passionate for men and building those relationships. And so we're also going to talk about, how do we affair proof that marriage and create that lasting love.
Okay. So that's the marriage day. That's tomorrow. And it sounds like a lot of different views on that. A lot, some different insight into it, different ways of looking at it. But again, for those of you that are married, dad, stepdad situation, either one, there's a lot of value there. And then on, let's see, so that's Wednesday now. We're going to be doing personality styles, communication styles, that part. On Wednesday, or is that work-life balance? Work-life balance. That's
right. We're going to be talking about self-care and work-life balance, and understanding this idea of leadership. And so, very first guy on the schedule is a guy by the name of Justin Bailey. He runs a business called Code of Character. And so he's going to be talking about how, what character is best, and what does character mean as far as your marriage and fatherhood. Not only that, but, he's got a podcast and he was in the military. And so, what have all these different events taught him about how to be a leader in his family?
And that's at 1?
Yes, that is at 1 p.m.
Yeah. Just wanting to touch the times too. So folks hear a name that they definitely want to capture here, they can come for that time. And again, go to www.fatherhood.com/summit. And I put that on the Facebook feed as well. And you can sign up there and you'll get a notification of what the specific link is and all of that. Or you can come to Matt's Facebook page at any of those times and catch us live as well and sign up for notifications on that, so you'll get notified when it goes live. So at 2 o'clock on the Work-Life Balance Day, who's coming up?
At 2 o'clock is my friend Brian Street, and Brian is an expert when it comes to leadership and what does that mean as far as marriage? How do you become a great leader? And we're not talking about the type of leader who is overbearing and stuff like that, but we're talking about somebody who leads by uplifting, by encouraging and uplifting their wife and not only their wife but their kids. And so he's going to be talking to us. Yeah, he's going to be talking to us a lot about servant leadership.
Okay. And who's up at the 8 Eastern time slot?
At 8 is my friend Alan DeBon. And so he's going to be talking to us a lot about growing up in a fatherless home and what that means, and how we can become a great leader and lead our own children when we don't have that, maybe that example or that encouragement coming to us.
Mm-hmm. And then the bringing up the anchor slot at 9 Eastern is...
I get to speak again, and I'm going to be speaking a lot about the value that we bring to each one of our children when we are leading, when we're having that example and being that example, and how we, one, are valuable in ourselves, and two, that we can implement that value into our children.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, and here's what I switched Wednesday to Thursday. Thursday is the personality styles and communication day, right?
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Ashley's up first at 1, or did we switch it?
At 1 or at noon.
Oh no, Teresa's up.
Is Teresa? Right. So Teresa,
that's right. Awesome.
Teresa is great. She's a dear friend. She is an expert when it comes to the Enneagram. Yeah. And so helping to understand the Enneagram can help you, improve your relationship with your spouse and with your children, and help you guys make some decisions. And right. She's also going to be talking about some of the different pitfalls that she's seen in marriage. And
then Ashley's up after her at 1. That's right.
Yep. And Ashley is an expert in the disc, and so we're going to be talking to her. She's also a world traveler, and so we're going to talk to her about personality styles, not only mentally, but also emotionally, and how do you encourage your marriage, and what does it take to not only be a great spouse, but to be a great parent, especially when you have a child who is whose personality style is different than yours.
Yeah, which, by the way, is pretty much a guarantee that they will be. Yeah. And then at 8 Eastern on Thursday.
So at 8 Eastern, we have a treat for you guys. The one and only Aaron Walker will be joining us. And so he's going to be talking to us. He has a quote at the top of his website. It says, "Live a life of success and significance." And so we're going to be talking to him from a fatherhood point of view, from a husband point of view. What does success and significance look like? And how can we help our wives, or our wife, singular, live a life of success and significance?
And that's at 8? Is that right?
Yep, that is at 8 p.m.
And then... Or is Aaron on Friday?
That is on. I'm sorry. That is at 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's at 2, right? Yeah. I thought so. Yeah, because I think I know who's at 8. So.
And then Scott, why don't you tell the good people who is at 8?
Yeah, I'm actually up at 8, and kind of like Ashley, I'm also certified in DISC. And we'll talk some about that and how that's impacted my own marriage. My own relationship with my own kiddos and my goddaughters as well as kind of how a little bit about how it's touched on my business life and coaching and that sort of thing, and how that's fundamentally redesigned how I approach pretty much everything I do. I also love Enneagram. I love Myers-Briggs. I'm a student of all of these things, so I've done all of them, and eventually will be certified in all of them. Strengths finders, you name it. I've probably taken it more than once because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to these assessments. So it's one of those things where not just kind of how do you go take a DISC test, or how do you go take Enneagram, or how do you go take Strengths Finder, but great, now you've taken it. Now what the heck do you do with it? Is kind of my focus in terms of what does that do in terms of actually changing your behavior, your action, who you are, what you say, what you do. And that's that's something that can be a little bit tough at times, in knowing how to implement that. And so that's kind of what we'll be talking about Thursday to wrap up the anchor. And then Friday, you've got again starting at 1. And correct me if I got that wrong, but it's starting at 1 Eastern time, and that's going to be
that will be Kent Julian. So the one and only. Ken is one of those guys that I love, and I've got a lot of respect for him. He's a great family man. He's very present with his wife and his children, and he's just a great example of what fatherhood can look like if we take the chance and work with it.
And then coming up right after him at 2 Eastern time is
that will be Terry Burgess, aka Coach T.
Coach Terry.
Yep, and good guy, great friend of mine. And so we're going to talk about what are some of the struggles that men typically make. So what are the struggles that they typically make when it comes to marriage and fatherhood, and as men, how do we fix those struggles?
Mm. And then at 8 Eastern on Friday, again, talking about business, finance.
So we're going to be talking to a friend of mine, Dr. Johnny Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's seen a lot of different people in his office and on calls, and he understands, and he has seen how money can be one of the biggest reasons for marriages ending. And so we're going to talk to him about what are some of the tips and tricks that he's offered people to make sure that their relationship is fireproof.
And then anchoring that Friday night at 9. No, 8. No, 9. Yeah, I got it right. 9 Eastern time is. So I'm trying to do the time conversion in my head. So it's like I'm trying to do the math in my head as I'm talking, which is never. Don't do math live, okay?
So to finish out, our conclusion for the summit part is a guy by the name of Ricky Shetty. And so Ricky is a world traveler. He's someone who's got 3 small children, about the same age as mine are. And we're going to talk to him about how does he balance his business and fatherhood. And not only that, but as he's traveling, he's a world traveler, so he travels to different countries. What are some of the best money advice, tips, and tricks that he has seen so that everyday men so that we can become successful with our marriage and money and our experiences.
And then you got something special going on Saturday as well, right? You want to let folks in on that?
There's something I'm working on. I haven't quite heard back about something that I'm planning, but one of the big things I am going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a live question and answer. So any of the guys, any of the speakers that are able to, I'm going to invite them all back for about an hour and a half. And so this is going to be a massive question and answer time. This is going to be a great chance for you to ask your questions, to get your questions answered about whatever subject you want.
So an AMA, and ask me anything, huh?
Yep. Ask anything you want, about the subjects, about faith and how it's gotten you through, about marriage, and anyone who's been married for any amount of time has had, some of those rocky moments. So how did we get, through those maybe? How can we become a better leader? How do we struggle and cope with different personalities in the family, and then finances?
Well, and again, a lot of the speakers, I know for myself, I know Aaron Walker, I know Dow, I know, I know a lot of these folks, Patrick, others, and a lot of us can talk on more than one of these topics. It's not like we've picked one, you picked one based on time, availability, trying to get a variety of folks from a variety of topics. But that'd be great if a lot of different ones can join on Saturday, because you may not get all of the speakers back, but those of us that you do, most of us can touch on some of these other topics as well. So it's a good chance to come back and kind of do if you've got any questions, anything that's come up that maybe didn't get answered during the particular summit, and get a chance to have folks follow up with that as well. I know we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour, and Dow's coming up next. And that will be a different link as well. Do you want me to put that out to folks that are on Facebook? I mean, they'll see it on Facebook Live, but if anyone wants to join, or do you want them to just go to the summit and sign up, and they'll get it that way?
When we do go live,
It'll
the
pop
thank you
up in
videos are
Facebook.
there. I'm also going to be sharing all of these. So I'm doing 2 sessions at a time. After the 2 sessions, I'm planning on putting them on YouTube. Not only that, but I'll be sharing my YouTube so that people can go and they can check those videos out and they can absorb the knowledge that is being shared.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so that's a couple of ways you can find it or join in as well. And again, make sure you go over to the www.fatherhoodsummit.com/summit and sign up there, because then you'll get notified of what the YouTube channel is, and all of that stuff can come out through there. So is there anything you want to add as we're kind of wrapping up again to the top of the hour, so that I know you got to pop off and get everything set up so that we can get the next speaker up and going. But before we do that, is there anything you'd like to add or invitation to folks?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I want, every guy out there to know is that you're insanely important. It doesn't matter what your past looks like. It doesn't matter if you come from a broken home. It doesn't matter if your dad wasn't there. Yes, those things are painful, but they're learning experiences. You have the opportunity to change your family's history and to change your children's lives. The other thing that I would like to that I'll mention is that once this summit is over, I will be offering what I'm calling an identity coaching package, and this is the whole thing is going to be about helping you to answer who you are in light of these different subjects. So we're going to be talking about faith. We're going to be talking about marriage. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about personality styles. We're going to be talking about business and finances. And so, and more of that will come probably Wednesday night when I'm speaking. But, as men, we need to understand who it is that we are. Who is it that we are created to be? Who is it that, what is our relationship like with God, or with that faith, with whatever that is that you call it, that's something that's bigger than you. And I would love to have the opportunity to help with some guidance with that. So, just stay tuned for more on that, and we'll learn a little bit more about that a little later on. And it's going to be a great summit. I hope you guys are half as excited as I am. We got some phenomenal speakers coming up.
Yeah, no, again, I don't quite know everyone that you got lined up, but I probably know 80% or so. And there's not at least of the ones I know, there's not a bad name in the bunch. So I presume that the other 20% that I don't know yet are going to be as good or better.
It's
so
going to be a
that's
great summit.
Yeah, it is a good opportunity, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And it's been great talking to you today, Matt. And we'll wrap things up. Those of you that are on Facebook, keep an eye on the channel. The next speaker will be going live there. Go over to the Summit page and sign up so you get notified of what's going live. Check it out on YouTube. Check out Matt's podcast, Wrestling with Fatherhood. And we'll be happy to see y'all all soon.
Sounds good. We will see you guys in about 10 minutes.
All right.